All of you live in a society, we all live in a society that's very comfortable, very comfortable. But it comes at a price. One of the most classic stories in medicine, you find it in Japan, you find it in India, you find it across the world historically repeated, and it's the story of the man who is very wealthy, and he goes to the physician, to the Hakim, and he says, "What do I do about my health?" And the man has been eating whatever he wants to, whenever he wants to. And he's destroyed himself by eating. And so the physician, the Hakim, says to him, "Well, do you really want to know? Can you handle the truth? Do you really want to know what you need?" And of course, the whole point of the story is, yes, the man needs to stop eating. He needs to stop eating so much. He needs to stop eating so lavishly. He needs to stop eating whatever he wants to. If he could only eat, bread and tea, he would probably achieve health. And the thing about all of this is this: if you live in a state of hamd and shukr, genuinely, then that piece of bread is absolutely wonderful. It's wonderful, that piece of bread. Pure, clean water. MashaAllah, what a beautiful thing it is. There's a woman who wrote a poem about she was in the forest, and she came to the spring, and the water was coming out, and she took the water in her hands and drank from it. How many of you have done that in the forest, drunk from a spring, cold water? Huh? You know, she drank from that, and she said, suddenly she heard her bones speak. And the bones said, "What was that wonderful thing that just happened? What was that wonderful thing, that water?" Allah's creation, being alive, the simplest thing is absolutely beautiful and enough. It's enough. We do not need all this. So living in the culture and the society in which we live, yes, it's comfortable. Yes, there are amenities. Yes, there's things that make it easy. And it comes at a cost. And it's a very, 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 very big cost. And I will say this, that we have not, for the most part, very few people have come to recognize the cost. The cost basically is written in terms of being present in our bodies. Do you all hear that? Being present in our bodies. We have controlled light, controlled heat. We can get from point A to point B in an air-conditioned car. We can go from the air-conditioned car to the air-conditioned house. We have these things called chairs. Do you know this is not something we've had as human beings for most of our history. Most of our history we have not had things like this. We've learned to sit on them. We've learned to sit in cars. This chair, and I want all of you, I don't want you to take this as a criticism. I want you, inshallah, to take this as an understanding. I'm trying to make a point that I feel is very important. To understand how to be healthy, how to be well, we have to be realistic and truly understand our state and our condition. This is what happens when you sit in the chair, right? Does this look out of the ordinary? What does it do to what happens from me sitting in that chair? This is the posture that it creates. The longer I sit in the chair, the more I'm going to look like this. Said to Musa, what did he say to Allah? What is your greatest hidden secret? How do we stay alive? How do we know we're alive? Right? By our heart beating. The Prophet ﷺ said in the body there's an organ. When that organ is sound, right? How do we know a person is alive? We hear their heartbeat, right? And how's the other way we know? By the breath. I don't want you to take this as a criticism, but most of you, if you observe right now the way you're sitting, people are not breathing. Because we've been sitting in chairs so long, what happens is this happens. Chest collapses, shoulders collapse, the back muscles have to hold up the head and the shoulders. The head goes. This is just one piece. There's a whole emotional quality to the culture that causes people to change their posture, to stop breathing. I'll tell you, people have stopped breathing. The rate of depression in this country, any of you know the figures on how many people are depressed? Let me tell you something. You find any one of those people, and I'll tell you, do this. Observe a person who is depressed, quote unquote, clinically depressed. If they're taking medication or not, and observe their posture and observe whether they're breathing or not. They will barely be breathing. Breathing is being alive. This is part of being alive. People in undeveloped, quote unquote, undeveloped countries, they breathe more. And they are more upright. How many people, you know countries where people carry things on their heads? How many of you could do that? How many of us here that have grown up in this society could even do that? Carry something around on the top of it. How many of us are upright enough to do that? It has to do with being upright. We don't like to hear this, and you like to think, well, this is not true what he's saying. I know that because it's easier. It's more comfortable to sit back in your chair. The car seat, I tell you, how many to sit in front in an automobile and to go from point A to point B with your legs out in front of you, one on one pedal, one on the other pedal, with your arms like this, and your back curved like that, so you cannot breathe. This is not natural. The more you do it, the harder it will be to sustain and achieve that which is natural. Look at little children and observe their posture. Their shoulders are up, they're upright, their backs are curved, and they're breathing. And when they breathe, some children, when they breathe, they lie on the floor. My granddaughter, when she breathes, her shoulder, heads, even her feet move with her breath. Because her whole body has integrity, wholeness, as I said at the beginning. Health is wholeness, unity, integration of the parts, wholeness, not split parts. We live in a culture, in an era, a time in a history of man when we split the heaven from the earth. We disconnect from and we do it with a belt. We put a belt around the middle. And even the women now wear pants on this lower part. Right? This is all new. 100 years ago, it wasn't the case. Very few women wore trousers. 100 years ago, many cultures, men wore single. This is only an indication. It has meaning. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying we shouldn't wear this, but we have to understand what's going on here. We have to understand that we've become so disconnected from nature, we don't know what it means to walk anymore. What do you think Allah gave us these things for? What they call in Morocco the number 11 bus. What did he give it? What is it for? It's for getting from one point to another. And he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he carried wood and they tried to take it from him to carry it, he said no. He wouldn't let them carry the wood for him. The Prophet, the highest pinnacle of mankind, carrying wood on his back. Where are we from that? So we can look at it nostalgically, and we can look at it as an idea, and we can look at it abstractly, but I want you to understand this affects you. And how do you change it? How do we change it? We recognize it first of all.